the issue of lateral entry. Uh, Civil services reforms or civil services role of civil services is something that is clearly mentioned in your syllabus, and that is why this topic becomes very important, because when we study role of civil services, we also study how to improve the performance of civil services. And to improve performance of civil services, there are two kinds of things which are spoken about. One is, in the existing civil services, there should be some internal reforms so that we're able to get good people, so that we're able to make them more effective, make them more trained, make them more specialized. And then when we talk about improving civil services, we also talk about external reforms. In external reforms, like getting people from outside to improve the performance of India's civil services. And lateral entry is one such external reforms which have been discussed for a long time and was being implemented since 2017. So we'll understand what lateral entry is, what happens within lateral entry, uh, how has it performed, but we'll also understand what happened in August, that UPSC had to withdraw the advertisement for lateral entry. So you will see the news was this: the central government has asked UPSC to withdraw advertisement for lateral entry into bureaucracy. So earlier, before government had done this, UPSC had issued an advertisement for 45 posts of joint secretaries, directors, and deputy secretary, uh, and it was open not only for private sector players but also for state government officers, for PSU officers, for PSU people, or for private sector people. For everyone, they could apply for this post and they could get jobs here. But there was a lot of criticism, especially from the opposition, on the grounds that there was no provision for reservation here. So you'll understand how there was no provision for reservation, all those things. But because of this, there have been lots of articles about lateral entry in the newspaper recently, and that is something that we want to thoroughly cover. So, what is lateral entry? When we talk about lateral entry civil services, what is lateral entry? देखो, there are two ways by which you can get into civil services. Let's say when we talk about central government में civil services की job में, there are two ways through which you can get. One, through direct examination, where जैसे people you will give civil services examination, right? UPSC civil services examination you will be giving, you'll be going through there. Then there are 1/3 of the people are the ones who have been promoted from state service. These are generally the two ways by which people join civil services. Lateral entry is a third mechanism where at senior level, mid level, or senior level, people are hired from private sector, experienced. Generally in civil services, it is the younger generation which will go, or younger people who will go at the beginning, in their 20s, in their 30s. Civil services में government level पे there is no mechanism of joining civil services at senior position. You will have to join at the junior position. But in lateral entry, for senior, mid level, or senior positions, people are hired laterally, not through this mechanism where people join at the first post, at the post which begins the services. Now, India में lateral entry is not something that is new. In fact, after independence, a lot of civil servants earlier, before independence, were Britishers. They had moved out. So after independence, just after independence, we realized that there was a lot of vacancy in civil services, and there were a few rounds of lateral entry into civil services in 1950s also. Right after independence, it had happened, but after that, it has happened in a sporadic manner for some specific positions. For example, you must have heard about, or you must be knowing Raghuram Rajan. Raghuram Rajan became RBI governor. So that was kind of lateral entry. Raghuram Rajan was taken from private sector or some university and brought as the head of the RBI governor. He was not someone जो civil services में got promoted, and eventually was brought to this position. So it was Montek Singh Ahluwalia, or for that matter, someone like Manmohan Singh. They were all examples of excellent people taken from private sector or educational institutions and brought literally into for the purpose of in civil service. Later, some of them became politicians, like Manmohan Singh got into politics and uh, became the finance minister and prime minister. That's a different scenario. So why lateral entry? Or acha, before why lateral entry? We'll see that there are various committees, commissions in the past who have advocated for it. कि हाँ, lateral entry होना चाहिए. Lateral entry should be there. For example, first ARC, First Administrative Reform Commission, way back in 1965, said that there was need of specialization in civil services, and civil servants that we are hiring are generalists, and thus there is a need of lateral entry. बाद में Surendranath Committee and Kota Committee in 2003 and 2004, both of them had recommended that there should be what? There should be lateral entry allowed. And second ARC, first ARC had recommended it, and second ARC in 2005 also said that we should have a institutionalized, transparent process for lateral entry. That is, we should create a proper mechanism for people joining at senior level, at mid level in civil services of both central and state government. Not only at the central government level, but at both central and state government level. But this process was not initiated. Even after second ARC's recommendation, this process was not initiated because bureaucracy opposed it. They would want mid-level, senior level positions to be filled by themselves rather than it being filled by outsiders. So they had pushed back. There was pushback from bureaucrats, both serving and retired bureaucrats, and the sheer institutional inertia of civil services that had existed earlier. It could not. The government could not initiate the process of lateral entry. बाद में in 2017, Niti Aayog came up with a 3-year action agenda, and there it emphasized on a process of lateral entry. The sectoral group of secretaries was also created. This sectoral group of secretaries on governance had also provided for that we need people at the mid level, at the senior level, directly taken from private sector. And in fact, after their recommendation, in 5 years, 63 appointments have been made through lateral entry. Of them, 57 lateral entrant officers are working with central government right now. Some of them have quit, but around 57 lateral entrant officers were working with central government. Okay, but why? Why lateral entry? हमने समझा. We have just understood the fact. This committee recommended it. This committee recommended it. Kota committee or this XYZ. They've all recommended कि lateral entry should be there. But why lateral entry should be there? What are the advantages? What are the arguments that these? I have not, while talking ki ARC or second ARC is recommending lateral entry, I did not give the reasons ki why they are recommending. There we just listed which are the committees, which are the bodies which have recommended lateral entry. But what are all the reasons that they have given for lateral entry to be there? One thing is that shortage of officers at mid level, both at the central government level and state government. We do not have enough officers at the mid-level positions. It's because I'd say like 10 years back, 15 years back, 20 years back, the number of civil servants who were hired at the entry level were much lesser in number. Many of them have quit their jobs in middle, and thus at the middle level, where you need people of 15 to 20 years of experience, joint secretary level, director level, deputy secretary level, we have shortage of officials. एक 2023-24 का parliamentary panel report है which says that only 442 IAS officers were working with the union government as against the requirement of 1469 IAS officers. And most of this requirement is at the middle level. The government cannot do this ki tomorrow it can hire a lot of people, because hiring like you may want ki civil services mein number of seats बढ़ जाए IAS officers. Next year, like every year, the government takes around 180 IAS officers. Next year, they take 1100 IAS. You would want that. But there, these people will be joining at the entry level. But where is the requirement? At the mid level. Similarly, Baswan committee in 2016 has shown that large states such as Bihar, MP, Rajasthan, they had deficit of 75 to 100 officers. So both at the state level, there are various reports which are saying that there is shortage of officers. And that is why we need to get officers. Where will we get it? We'll have to get it laterally, because mid-level pe to directly we cannot take them from the civil services examination mechanism. We'll have to hire them laterally. This is the most important reason. Why do we need lateral hiring? We need lateral hiring because there is vacancy there. So for government to function properly, for administration to function properly, we need lateral entry. So first reason, shortage of officers at mid-level. Second is the diverse demand of competitive federalism. Now, see, at the time of independence, what was needed was we were facing a lot of turbulence, and at that time we needed all India service officers who will be appointed by government of India but will be serving state governments, so that all India service officers are one of the features of, or जैसे हम बोलते हैं ना, in polity you study unitary features, you study federal features. Those are examples of unitary. They kind of give central government more power, more authority. But with time, state governments need to have more officials who they are themselves hiring and who are more specialized, who are working for them. This, over the last 70 years, this thing has come into play. So there is more officers needed at senior position from state government hiring at the level of state government hiring them. Whereas even at the state government level, you will see chief secretary, or at the mid level, senior level, who are all the officers. They are all IAS officers appointed by central government. Then specialization, another very important factor. In fact, जो ये वाला point था, second wala, it should have come after the specialization point. Most important thing that we'll write in our answer is shortage. कि भाई लोग चाहिए, where do you get it? Second point is need of specialization. With time, what is happening is, in various sectors, be it science and technology, be it economy, be it space, be it any other sector, you need people who actually understand it. I keep giving this example ki when it came to quantum computing mission, government initially allocated 80 crore rupees. If someone who actually understood, what is quantum computer and what are the kind of investment, what are the kind of efforts required, the allocation would have been higher. Even later, only 8,000 crore rupees have been allocated, and I can be pretty sure, I can tell you with a lot of confidence that if you go to Google, there will be 4-5 people who are heading the quantum computer department. Their salary will be more than 8,000 crore rupees, and government allocated for 5 years 8,000 crore rupees for the development of quantum computer in the country. So there is lack of understanding among officials, among ministers, what is it and how much is it going to impact the world, and why do we need to prioritize it? Right? When we can spend several thousands of crore rupees to give subsidies and other things, we should be able to spend much more amount for the development of these new technologies. But for that, what is needed? Specialization is needed. We need someone who understands these technologies, not generalists. And that is why we need specialists from private sector who have worked in those fields and are interested to serve government for a few years. Another, so why lateral entry? We need lateral entry because there is shortage. We need lateral entry because there is a need of specialization. Third point hona chahiye, complacency that has set in career based services. Like once you join civil service, you're like, life is sorted. I'll tell you one thing. In private sector also, a lot of us joined. I worked at Microsoft, so a lot of us joined at Microsoft. So there were some of my friends who were like, who were not very happy with what they were doing, who wanted to do bigger things, more important things. There were others who were like, Microsoft mein aa gaye, life set hai. So the quality of work which these people were doing, who were like always कि नहीं यार और अच्छा करा जा सकता है, इसमें और changes की जरूरत है, more efficiency is needed, they have done way better things in life. Whereas those people who are complacent, life is sorted. There is no insecurity left. We are working in the biggest computer science company in the world. they did not perform as well. They say I was a few days back I was talking about one of my juniors becoming India's youngest billionaire, Shashank Kumar, वो रेजर पे का फाउंडर है. He joined Microsoft. 2-3 साल बाद उसने छोड़ दिया because he thought he would be able to do something better, something bigger. ऐसे ही when it comes to civil services, if there is no competition, when if there is no threat, okay, after 4 years I'll become this, after 5 years I'll become this, after 7 years I'll become this. इस तरह से सीनियोरिटी के बेसिस पे आपका प्रमोशन होता रहेगा, नो मैटर व्हाट योर परफॉर्मेंस इज एंड ऑल. देयर विल बी कॉम्प्लिसेंसी. You will know कि among these people I'm the best performer. I will eventually become chief secretary, or I'll become joint secretary, I'll become deputy director, I'll become director, I'll become deputy secretary. The chance that you'll be putting your best effort would be lesser. But if there will be a threat, I should keep myself updated. Otherwise, they'll hire someone from private sector for this purpose. So there will be more energy with which civil servants would be functioning. And for that, what is needed? There should be an option of lateral entry, lateral hiring. Right. So then there are international examples also, where almost all the advanced economies, including some developing economies, they offer public service opportunities to highly competent and interested professionals. आप यूएस में चले जाओ, यूके में चले जाओ, कहीं भी, like go to any advanced economy, there is an option for private players to join civil services and contribute there. Though the numbers can be less, but still there is this option. And then वो वाला point, with time the demand of federalism has changed and state governments need more say in the type of officers that they are hiring, and for that purpose also it's important that they should also be able to hire people at mid level through lateral entry mechanism. So these are some genuine good arguments. As aspiring civil servants, you may not like it because आपको join करना है and you would want no one should be just, without this process of examination, no one should be becoming our senior or taking our jobs. But technically, these are good enough reasons, genuine reasons for why lateral entry should be there. Now, what are the criticisms? What are the limitations? What are the problems? Okay, there are people who oppose lateral entry also. So one is, the job of a civil servant is very different from job of a person in private sector. And expecting that, देखो, when you join services, you do not start making policies. You'll become joint secretary, where you are contributing in policy making after perhaps 15 years of service. Before that, you work at the ground level. आप IAS ऑफिसर बन के रूरल इंडिया में ब्लॉक district level पे, subdivision level पे, you'll be working, you'll understand way more things, you'll have way more ground experience while making policies. Whereas a person who has worked in private sector, who has worked in banking sector, who has worked in IT sector, who has worked in just universities and colleges, would not have that ground level experience. And they have experience of making as much profit as possible, which may not be the case with you people. You people will focus more on what will lead to biggest impact, because you have to, the profit is not the focus. Sometimes you are ready to give up efficiency in order to reach more people. That's what civil services needs to do, whereas private sector will focus more on efficiency. कम से कम पैसा spend least amount of money. Right? So these two jobs are not same. So someone who has excelled in private sector may not be able to excel here. But there are other important reasons. Politicians may use this mechanism to plant people, to get their family members, get other such people introduced in civil services, जिनका civil services examination qualify नहीं हुआ है. If you have a mamaji who's a minister, 15 years later, you become joint secretary because you are anyways useless in private sector. ऐसा भी होता है ना कि people who are not doing anything, who are not doing well because of political connection, they may join the services. Then uh, it's also not clear why these lateral entry people will be more efficient, because inefficiency, they say some of you may be very very efficient, but when you join services, people may consider you to be inefficient, but you have not become inefficient. You are working in a system where there is a lot of bottlenecks, where at every point you may have to think, I'm signing this document, I'm becoming legally binding. Tomorrow if something goes wrong, I'm the one who is responsible. This bridge is being constructed when I'm having an oversight over it. Even 5 years or 10 years down the line, if this collapses, a question would be asked, who was overseeing this? So you will take every step with a lot of precaution. So when a private sector efficient person is made to come in this system and work, what is the reason that that person will be way more efficient? Civil services mein jana is not an easy task. Only the very good people are able to go in there. Not everyone who's in private sector, चाहे वो बिलियनियर बन गया, उससे बोलो सिविल सर्विसेज का एग्जाम क्वालिफाई कर लेगा क्या? इजीली नहीं कर पाएगा, राइट? तो एक्सपेक्टिंग कि वो एफिशिएंट होंगे, वेयर इज द एम्पिरिकल स्टडी अबाउट इट? Have you done some pilot project to find कि there were these 5 joint secretaries who were from civil services and these 5 joint secretaries who are from lateral entry, and they are performing better, right? So there is this not clear how lateral entrant will be more performance oriented, because they'll have to work in a process compliance system, and the limitation comes from that process compliance system. Then it will also reduce their accountability and responsibility, because they are there only for short period, 5 साल के लिए, 7 साल के लिए, whereas you people are career bureaucrats. When you join civil services, your career would be that. So whatever you do, you'll always be like 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, I am the one who's going to be responsible for it. So will they be accountable enough? They're making a policy, they're giving a suggestion in the policy, and let's say because of that some problem occurs 8 years down the line, their career is not going to get affected, because they were there only for 5 years, right? So their accountability, their responsibility is much lesser. Then it may also increase disconnect between policy making and implementation. How will it lead to this disconnect? See, where are we hiring people? We are hiring people at policy making level, lateral entry, joint secretary level. Now, when you have a joint secretary, suppose some joint secretary gives you make some policy and you are supposed to implement it. You know that joint secretary has come through lateral entry. At grassroots level, civil servants would be like, this policy or this program is not worth implementing. They have not thought about it practically. You'll always be having a difference with them. Whereas if they were your seniors who have gone through this process, they would understand what challenges come in the implementation, and accordingly the policies would be made in particular way. So you will also respect that person, because those aspects have been taken into consideration, because that person knew what happens at the grassroots level. So with more lateral entry, the disconnect between policy making and implementation may increase. Are we understanding this? Are we all able to understand this? Okay. Then it may discourage talent at the entry level. If senior positions, more and more senior positions are being filled by lateral entrants. Abhi so many people, so many young talented people want to become civil servants. That may reduce, and that may reduce the quality of people who are joining civil services. Right. At the same time, it may also hamper our focus on internal reforms. Civil services as a system suffers from a number of challenges. There's a lot of political interference. There is not proper review mechanism. Promotions are sometimes very political. Appointments are very political. When another party comes to power, all the IAS officers are transferred or secretaries are changed because there are issues. So we have to work on those issues. But if we focus on external reforms like lateral entry, those issues would continue to remain. It may the external reforms like lateral entry may reduce the focus on internal reforms. Then it may also lead to neglect of social justice. How neglect of social justice? Jaise in this appointment, the 45 appointments which were advertised, they were advertised in a manner that reservation will not be given. Now, generally, how reservation is given, whenever let's say within a department, 5 people have to be hired. Out of those 5 people, 15% have to be SCs. So 5 of 15 is 15, 5, 7.75. Right? 5 number ka 15% is 0.75. So around 1 seat would be reserved for scheduled castes. SC percentage wise, seats would be reserved for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, and so on. But if there is only one post, then reservation doesn't come into. If there is only one post, then the system of reservation doesn't come into. Now, this time what government did, the 45 posts which were there, for which advertisement was, they were single posts in different departments. Single post in different department means reservation doesn't. So in the roster system, reservation comes into play as proportional seats. But here they were all single seats, and that's why there was a lot of opposition. SCs, STs, OBCs, the weaker section will be ignored here in this hiring process. So sometimes through lateral entry, because in through civil services, when the job is being given at entry level, all the IAS officers get at the same position. So for among 180 people, there will be 15% reservation for SCs, 7% reservation for STs, some 27% reservation for OBCs, 27% reservation for OBCs. So enough number of SCs, STs, OBCs would be there. Social justice would be ensured. But in this kind of hiring, this was one of the examples. All the posts were single posts, and single post में reservation का scope नहीं होता, because if there is only one post, there is no chance of reservation. So in this way, even in spite of hiring 45 different people, advertising for 45 different people, there was no provision for SC, ST, OBC reservation. So sometimes lateral entry may also go against social justice. Are we getting it? So we have some arguments for criticizing lateral entry also. Right? But we understand that there is some material in support of lateral entry too, and those are genuine points. Those are genuine points. So in our way forward, we cannot say that lateral entry band karo. Even if in your heart you want ki nahi, there should not be lateral entry. Increase the number of seats here so that our chances of selection increase. Your answer has to be genuine. Your answer has to be not very selfish. Right? So what should be the way forward for us then? We are saying in way forward that Indian civil services need reform. Yes. Internal reforms such as insulation from political pressure, career path linked to specialization, and external reforms such as lateral entry are complementary and should go hand in hand. So internal reform mein dekho, what political pressure, like insulation from political pressure is one reform that we very strongly need for our civil servants to function, to work properly. So we need reforms. Insulation from political interference is needed. Similarly, a core reform that we need is career path linked to specialization. That is, promotion should not just keep on happening because you have completed 5 years, you have completed 10 years. There should be, like, after 10 years, there should be some mechanism where you achieve specialization and then you are progressing in that particular direction. You're progressing under Ministry of Science, or you're progressing under Ministry of Agriculture, you're progressing under Ministry of Finance, and so on. So these reforms are needed. So internal reforms and external reforms should go hand in hand. They should complement each other, right? Internal reforms should not be ignored. Now, when external reforms are happening, or when lateral entry is being done, we are not going to deny, or we are not going to ignore lateral entry. We are not going to oppose lateral entry, right? So lateral entry is needed. Usme, what are the key things that we should keep in mind? Selection process should be politically neutral and based on merit. UPSC should be playing the main role in the hiring process. Second, lateral entry should be restricted to posts where domain expertise is not available within the service. Now, within the services, if you have domain expertise, in rural development, if you have domain expertise, then you should not be hiring people from outside for the purpose. Social justice aspect, like reservation policy, should be respected in spirit even during lateral entry. Literally, those were respected even to this time, because they said that reservation comes into play only when more than one seat is there. So on papers, reservation policy was not violated, but in spirit, it was violated. So that should be respected. While lateral entry is happening, it should happen in politically neutral manner. It should happen for those posts where within services we don't have specialization, rather than getting those people, like tomorrow you become a civil servant and then your friend is working in IT sector and he's unhappy, and you say कि मैं अपने मिनिस्टर से बात करता हूँ, तुम्हें लेटरल एंट्री दिलवाता हूँ सिविल सर्विस. नहीं समझ में आया तुम्हें? नहीं, she doesn't understand Hindi. You're understanding Hindi? You have lived in Delhi for some times now. So I'll assume कि you understand Hindi. Little bit. आप लोग क्या कर रहे हो? छोरी को सिखाओ हिंदी, है ना? From today, all of you should go and speak one line with her. Huh? It's a with subtitles, yes. Make her understand Hindi. क्या 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 तुम ये कन्याकुमारी से? You are also not able to understand? He can understand. He has spoken with enough number of people. And let's come back. So, in way forward, internal reforms and external reforms should happen in a complementary manner. Lateral entry should be there, but it should be in a politically neutral manner. UPSC should be conducting the appointment process, and people should be hired for those positions where we do not have specialization internally. And then, in long run, induction through competitive examination must expand incrementally. I'm talking about your benefits also in way forward. So that now 10 years down the line, we should not need people at mid-level. Only specialist, hardcore specialist may be needed, but not otherwise. Increase. So in long run, induction through competitive examination must expand incrementally. One is this. The remedy lies not through lateral induction, but through more rigorous performance appraisal and improved personal management. That is, we are saying that within services also, the performance should improve. By lateral entry, what we are saying is, indirectly what we are agreeing to is, हमारे सारे civil servants हैं, they're not good enough, get people from outside. If you are agreeing to they're not good enough, what you should do? You should try to make them good enough. So their performance evaluation, everything needs to change, needs to improve. Then there should also be efforts made that these IAS officers who join services, after serving at the ground level for a few years as SDMs, as district magistrates, and so on, the moment they are entering into policy making, they should achieve some specialization, and while making policies, focus in that area. A lot of you will go to Harvard or Stanford for 1 year, 2 year study. Identify your area of specialization. Work on that. You may be even, like, one suggestion is this also, there should be a provision of sending these bureaucrats or these civil servants in private sector for a few years to get experience, to get specialization. Right? So there are 3 things that we spoke about in way forward. One, external and internal reforms both should go on hand in hand. in the name of external reforms, while doing external reforms, we should not ignore internal reforms. Second, the lateral entry should happen, but its process should be politically neutral. UPSC should be conducting it, and the social justice principle should be respected. Third, in long run, we should not need lateral entry. We should reform our civil services in such a way that 10-15 years down the line, we have enough number of officials, that is, hire more people now, give the performance, like they should not become complacent. Performance review mechanism needs to change, and these people should also develop specialization. So here we're saying effort should be made to help IAS officers after their first decade of groundwork at district level to acquire specialization in broad sectors like social, infrastructure, financial, based on their qualification, aptitude, preference. We need to pursue this more seriously. Like some of you may be, let's say, coming from economy background, right? When you're coming from economy background, after serving as SDMs, SDMs for 5-10 years, you should focus in that area. So when you're going for higher studies, it should be in that area. Where if you're made to work in private sector, let's say government decides ki everyone from this will be made to work in private sector for a few years, you should be working in that area, so that you are the specialist that government would be using rather than depending on outsiders, because there are advantages of people working permanently here in this land. There are advantages which outsiders will not have. You being able to work at the ground, you having been worked on the ground level, and so on. So we can't allow the steel frame of India to remain weak from within and only seek external repair. There are problems within. We have to make this steel frame, civil services, which is considered the steel frame of India, we have to make the steel frame strong, while for now we can get help from outside in order to improve the